welcome. It's been so great to get to know you all in the last little bit. But I think the first thing we should do is a round of introduction so our audience can get to know you. So, Tamara, you want to start?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Francois. I am with the XP agency. Co-founded it about 10 years ago. We are an experiential agency. We create experiences for brands, but really what we do is we make brands human for people. So we don't like to use the word consumers. We're people. We've got feelings, emotions, and all of that. And so we create experiences for brands and make them human for people.
Amazing. Welcome.
Yeah, so Teresa, I am with Mirriad. We're an ad tech platform, and we reimagine product placement powered by AI. So the ability to insert brands into stories in a natural and authentic way that's seamless and scalable.
All right, Ben?
Hey, I'm Ben James. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at GALE. We're all over, but my office is based at the World Trade Center in New York City. At GALE, we're real consulting done creatively. We're an outcomes-obsessed group, very interested in delivering impact for our clients. We do many things very well, but three things very, very well. It's like loyalty rewards programs, media, and storytelling.
Amazing. Well, we've got a really exciting panel and a great range of experience. I'm very excited to step in. We've all been at Cannes this week, and I would say this is quite the stage for experiences and immersive experiences. So let's just start out as a warm-up. What's one, it doesn't have to be from Cannes, but what's one really great immersive experience you've had recently? Who wants to start?
Yeah, so I read about one recently. It's actually out of Canada.
Okay.
So since cannabis became legal in Canada, the accident rate, like driving and motor vehicle rate, accidents have gone up. And so what the government came in and did is they created a taxi called Taxi 420. I just read about this last week, and I just thought it was really cool because I thought that they were really taking like a negative and making it a positive. And so if you planned on using cannabis for the evening, you can call Taxi 420. It had food in there, like if you get the munchies, and it operates all night. So I just thought it was like just really, really smart in terms of how it's meeting a need, it's solving a problem. And it, again, turning a positive into a negative, I think normally that might be a topic that people would want to stay away from. So the fact that the government was really facing it head on, I thought was super awesome.
Very insight-led.
Yeah.
Embraced it. Awesome. Who else has one?
You know what, it's just top of mind, and I actually saw it this morning on my LinkedIn feed. It wasn't my experience, but somebody posted here in Cannes where it was a mirror, and you know, kind of, it basically dresses you, and it shows you in the mirror, so it's like an actual you hologram, but you're wearing all these beautiful clothes that will fit in well here in Cannes. So the gentleman who posted it, it showed his experience, and I was like, wow, I need to go to that activation wherever it's at. And it actually gives you the shoppability to take you to whatever website to actually buy the clothing, so I thought it was really cool.
That's great. You're going to have to pass
I'm
along the link for us.
Post,
yes.
And then I'm going to repost it.
Excellent. Ben, how about you?
You know, a couple years back, we were setting up a gaming platform and a gaming service for clients. And I tell you what, I approached Roblox entirely as a noob, like someone just brand new to the space. And in an activation that we had done there, but I was walking around the space, inside the space, and just experiencing all of that giant world just inside my mobile phone. And that was something very special to try to do that on behalf of a brand and think about it. But I was just exploring the space of Roblox, and it was massive. I mean, when I refer to it, I caught myself even there. I was in there and I was walking around. And that's the way that we hear people talk about these things and consider these things, is like, I was walking around and talking to some friends and just hanging out, you know, and it's just, it's hard to even understand it. And so, but Cannes itself has provided an immersive experience this week, so we're really happy to be here.
Yes. Has anybody had an amazing immersive experience here at Cannes that they want to share?
I think the thing is I take a very broad definition, we take a very broad definition to what immersive experience is. You know, we don't think it always has to have electricity running to it. we're talking to, Samsung ads about the, kind of exciting things that they do, where they're bringing product experience into the home, where you can, create different experiences that people can have so that they can connect with the brands and businesses that we represent faster. So we're really excited about where it's going. That one has electricity in it, but I think of these things as just community experiences where you go in and respect the values. Mm-hmm. So there's something about Cannes itself this year that feels like it has kind of a special immersion to it anyway.
Great. Well, we're going to dive into that a bit more. So I want to start with, now that we're warmed up talking about brand storytelling and immersion, I want to start with a little bit of perhaps a difficult question, or one that I often get from clients when we're working in this space. And that is, some of these experiences are costly to build. They are big, they're larger than life, and proving the ROI on them is sometimes difficult. So in your quite vast experience between technology, immersion, insights, how do we prove the case that these types of experiences can in fact drive growth for a brand or business?
I think measurement is the Achilles heel of experiential. It really, it doesn't have the same type of numbers that like media would have or that social would have. So the way that we like to talk about it at our agency is really that what experiential is great at, like what experiential's superpower is driving people down the consumer funnel, right? And so that is not something that like media or advertising can do when people are paying not to see ads. So you may get the big numbers, but you're really going to get awareness, which you need, but you also need consideration, you need knowledge, you need education, you need conversion. And I think that is where experiential punches above its weight.
Excellent. Maria, how about you? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, at Mirriad, what we're doing is we live inside the content, right? So we're actually reimagining, again, we're bringing product placement into content in ways that that should feel natural, and you don't want to disrupt that experience. But it's innovation, and oftentimes innovation is considered risk, so for budgets, but it's so important that it's tied to measurement. So really building new measurement frameworks, and we've been doing a lot of good work on that side. So yeah, I think that, and then also the ability to scale, right? Be able to prove that not only is it measurable, but you can scale it. So, yeah.
Great. And Ben, did you have thoughts on that? It looks like you wanted to jump in here.
We spend a lot of time sharpening the problem and setting the goals, really thinking about what are the outcomes that we want from these things. It's interesting to see the world of media, this evolution that we've made from the pure impressions game into more immersion. That was the form of the thesis of our gaming practice was immersion over impressions. And what's involved in that is, combinations of talent, community, technology, and the talkability that you're going to get there. Our practice is based originally in loyalty rewards programming, so we know a lot about providing real value for customers in spaces like email. Guess what? They open your email when they appreciate what's in it. And so if you appreciate them and their needs, you can provide relevant things, be respectful of the communities that you're in and operate with. And so we're doing some really fun things in the space. It's really great to share.
Awesome. And Maria, I'm going to come next to you with this question. So if we've proven the value of the ROI, or even the value downstream, let's go back to the founding principles of these experiences, and it's all about insight. So how do you really think about insight-led experiences, particularly in this kind of world which you're operating right now?
Yeah, I think the really important thing, especially when I talk about Mirriad and virtual product placement, the first question I always get is, wait, you can insert a brand into an old Back to the Future movie, and it's like, no, I mean we could, but we don't want to disrupt right the authenticity of the creator and how a story is told. And so it's really important to lead with, first of all, who's the audience that's watching this, and also what's the storyline. So you don't want to insert a brand that disrupts or just doesn't belong there. So we're very intentional with how a brand shows up. And while it's nicknamed virtual product placement, it could be a billboard. It could be, this is a scene and there's a TV that we could magically mount and there's a commercial playing, right? So being able to bring the brand in a very natural and authentic way. And, I think right now AI there's a fine line, right, with trust, right? I mean, my whole feed, I'm like, is this real? It's like, or is this, AI? And so, once you lose that trust, from an audience or a consumer, it's hard to win it back. So you got to make sure if you're that brand, you're showing up in content, you're not disrupting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, from an insight standpoint, what's some of the ways that you are embracing insights in the work you're doing?
Boy, it's really interesting across the 3 practices that we have. With loyalty is really owned media. With media, our media practice is paid media. With brand storytelling, it's more earned media. The definition of insight can be different depending on who you're talking to in each place. So in the media world, it seems to be more about the insight is they're over there. In the storytelling world, we're looking for the tension that's there or a way that we can answer something special about their lives. So we spend a lot of time thinking about when people are asking us about insight, which insights are we talking about and what are we going for? But it's crucial for storytelling, especially to make scalable, immersive experience, make these things shareable. If it's insightful and you're doing something that cares about them, they're going to be more likely to talk about it and share it and participate and engage in it.
Yeah, that's actually a really great segue. And Tamara, I'm going to come to you next with this one, because the example you brought up was culturally relevant. And so when you think about the role of experience in driving cultural immersion and resonance, how is the work that you're doing, or some great work that you've seen, really doing that connection to culture?
I think a couple of things. I think to build resonance, you've got to be authentic. You have to be relevant. And I think you need to build trust with the audience. Okay. I think that's probably the biggest challenge that brands have, because I think a lot of people are just trying to be opportunistic with different cultural groups, whether it's ethnic, lifestyle, generation, age. And so how do you make your brand really resonate? How do you really make it connect? Your audience first has to trust you. And I think once you can gain that trust, then you can absolutely build memorable experiences with them.
Okay. Mirriad, did you have anything on this one?
Yeah, I think, advertisers need to remember there's a difference between cultural relevance and resonance, right? You really have to, we know when you're just showing up to the party and you have no idea how to, connect or speak. Even with Latinos, when we're advertised to, and I mentioned this on our prep call, I mean, folks don't realize that there's over 30 countries, right? And we speak Spanish differently, how you speak to a Mexican versus a Puerto Rican. And oftentimes, when you look at the strategy behind how advertisers are talking to Hispanics here in the U.S., it's a check the box, right? And it often comes with, who's behind the camera, who's in the room, who's working at the agency, right? So representation is unfortunately not always there on both sides, in front and behind the camera. So it's so important as an advertiser to make sure when you're showing up that you actually understand the cultural nuances and are able to resonate, which then earns that trust.
And just to dive into that a little bit deeper, because as you think about, especially when you're building some of these bigger experiences, let's say more of the physical, the tactile experiences, how do you strike the balance of making it appeal to many people while also having that nuance that we've just discussed in culture? Have you seen anything that's done it particularly well? Anybody?
Well, we had a great experience working on some work with our clients at Don Julio for Global Social for the Dia de Muertos holiday last year. The way first that we went about that is we worked with a PhD in Dia de Muertos, an artist, Betsabe Romero, who's Mexico-based, truly understands it. When we said, okay, if we're going to create ofrendas all over the world, how should we go about this? Asked her about it. When we showed her our original thoughts and plans for it, she said, oh no, don't use these blue flowers. This is not about resurrection. This is about a celebration. We made a lot of mistakes in the concepting. And we brought her in, and we respected and listened. Listened to what she said. Now, the reason I bring that up for the tactical experience, in that success, we scaled it to 38 markets globally. And each one was an experience in a different part of the world. There was a Los Angeles experience, there was a Mexico City experience, there was 5 different places and cities in almost takeovers in India where they did this. And scaling that all over the world so that the product experience could be these really joyful experiences where people could gather and celebrate and remember was something very special to do. And so with a group like Don Julio, we're able to do it where we're guiding on, what those experiences are in bars and restaurants, on-premise and off-premise all over the world, but then like trying to tell that story in social media. We would just look silly if we had done the wrong thing and been called out for it. So we're using creators to approach the holiday authentically. We're really trying to make sure that we have seats at the table for the people who are the authentic voices in what we create.
Absolutely.
I'll add, there was one that I'll shout out is, and it's more of a brand campaign, but they get it right, and it's Modelo, the fighting spirit. And what they're doing is they're highlighting different stories, immigrant stories, right? So, any grandmother, Latina grandmother that's cooking, typically cooks with beer, right? When they're making the guisados, the stews. And, my mother-in-law always laugh. The only time I ever see her drink a Corona is when she's cooking, because then she's pouring it and then she finishes the Corona. And they show that in one of their spots, right? It's the grandmother and it's the fighting spirit. So she's working, she's sweating, she's cooking, and she earned that that first swig of the beer, the cold beer, the bodega owner, right? So I love that campaign because they get it right and they tap into those nuances, right, within different segments that we can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. We heard from a couple of people yesterday across a few different panels and just this point of authenticity, but it's not authenticity the way we were perhaps talking about it as a community several years ago. It's the raw, unfiltered, real moments that people are living in, and that it's sort of taking it down from an insight to a real experience that's lived and shown and shared.
Yeah, and that's where you get the resonance and the trust, and you see me, and then I see you, right? And now you've earned my trust and loyalty, right?
And we can relate to that because we've been in those moments, and we can do that. Okay, so now I want to talk about another thing that's happened perhaps over the years at Cannes. Technology is such a big part of the conversation. And we've had a lot of conversations about AR and VR and XR and all the different things. So as we think about where we are today and where we're going, when you think about physical spaces, what do we think is next in terms of immersive experiences, storytelling? How is this collision between what's going on technologically and what we've just talked about and the importance of relevance, resonance? How do we see that coming together? What's the next wave of experience? Yeah. What do you think? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll just say, it's interesting, and I don't know if this is kind of but I was having a conversation with somebody and he said, what I'm trying to do more is read actual books again. Like I'm so overstimulated with AI and technology and all of it that I actually just want to pick up a book and read. And we were going into it and he was saying that there's like stats out right now that the younger generation is doing this more, right? And so I think about my kids in Roblox, they're obsessed. And it's like once they get off, it's like they're overstimulated and you're like, that's screen time. And I'm like, guys, go play outside. Yeah. So what I think is gonna happen, we're just gonna get so fed up with it that we're gonna kind of want to turn off for a little while and just come back to real life because you forget to smell the roses, right? And so that's my take on it.
Amazing.
I've got a kid obsessed with Roblox too, so I wish and I hope that's where it goes. I think there is so much happening just with UGC. And user-generated content. And I think, like, as we think about creating immersive experiences, it used to really be like a lot about like the brands, like telling people like this is what you're going to take a picture of, and this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to have the logo in the back. And now we're really finding that the more that we can give people the power to create their own content and do whatever they need to do with it, especially monetize it, the better. And so I think immersive experiences that are more like co-collaborative and don't necessarily talk to the audience, but really work with them and give them opportunities to monetize, grow their own platforms, because everybody is a creator at this point. Like everybody is creating content, everybody has a podcast, everybody has a blog, everybody's got an Instagram page. And so I think the more opportunities that we give people to do that, the better. And I think we'll see a lot more of that in immersive experiences and as they grow with whatever technology helps to amplify that.
Excellent. Ben, did you have something to add on this one too?
I mean, well, I thought your question was awesome because you managed to do it without saying AI. It's like the amazing thing, because every conversation it comes in, and I think to try to simplify it a bit for our clients, we're really thinking of, okay, we've used technology for insight. We've used technology to deliver the connection points. We're using technology to measure things. Okay, so what's this technology? What's the potential in this technology? What do we want it to do for us? What do we want it to deliver? Volume is going to go sky high. It is. The slop and the things that you see, the stuff that you have to help create, kind of the navigation through that. It's also going to, I believe, create a creative revolution, creative renaissance in creating these kinds of experiences, because through all of that clutter, really creative, thoughtful examples that are happening with precision in people's lives are the places where people are still going to want to gather and do things. And so we're going to be able to use it to create those things faster. And, we estimate that our teams are saving 6 hours, a person in our agency saves 6 hours a week by the amount of AI that they're using right now. But we're trying to return that back into creative strategies where we can create more meaningful connections for the brands and businesses that we represent.
Mm-hmm. And do we feel like that world where AI and the cool stuff that it can do, the creative unlock, the next wave, do we feel like that's going to meet us in the human moment, where when we're in a retail experience, or when we're going out to eat at a restaurant, or perhaps staying in a hospitality, do we feel like we're going to meet those two things at the moment? Or do you think we're going to have a divergence where, AI plays more of a background role and the other things we've been talking about play more of a foreground role? What are your thoughts on that? I'm going off script. Felt the moment for the question. What do you think?
I think they're going to meet.
Okay.
I think they're going to meet. I think it's, going to a restaurant. I think it's happening already, even like through a lot of loyalty and things like that. There's a lot of data and information and insights that they have, and it's going to a restaurant and it knowing already what you want and what your preferences are. I think it's, when you look at different experiences, like Sephora is doing globally, and you can, they've got these retail environments that can, like you're saying, show you what you're going to look like and show you different looks. But I think it's so predictive and spot on predictive. It's a little scary. And so I think they're going to meet. I would like to see it go, be divergent personally, but I just don't think that's where the technology is going.
Yeah.
Great.
And I'll agree with that. I think even as a mom, I'm always looking for life hacks, right? Simplify my life. Take all my algorithms, know me, I don't care if it means that my life is going to be simpler. So, I love the shoppable ability. And, if I'm scrolling on Instagram, I always say Instagram made me buy it. I'm more of an Instagram person than TikTok. But I would say I'm influenced often, and I enjoy it because it makes my life easier. It's like, oh, I love your glasses. Shop it.
Yep.
So if it is making my life easier, and I think that's just going to keep evolving. So yeah, I'm going to embrace it, but I do think it's going to come together. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a dad of, you brought up parenthood. I'm a dad of a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. And, a lot of the technology that's already there, our car parks itself.
Yeah.
And every time I'm having the car park itself, I'm like, I don't
know how to do this now.
And they're just like, and it's these, it's Frozen 2 on demand. And, I'm trying very hard to help them get bored so that they can experience the magic of these things.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's going to be a big part of the role of the brands and businesses that we represent now, is to put magic creative layers on the edges of these things so that people can be surprised and delighted and enjoy these things. I want to protect them from the world where, the average consumer now, the average person is scrolling the length of the Empire State Building, that kind of height in their daytime. So I, have them out in the world and let these things enhance those experiences is what I hope for. So I hope that's what AI, we'll see more of that, driving it in the back and, maybe part of it in the front, but that's just more of a hopeful dad idea, I guess.
The self-driving cars, though, that's where it crosses the line for me. I mean, I see people getting picked up and like what
the Waymos?
Yes. And I'm like, no, and they're on like the expressway, and they're filming themselves, and there's no one in the driver's seat. No, thank you.
I mean, we see people having two experiences with exactly that, fear of it or embracing it, and some people hopping in just to get someplace.
Yeah.
Because once you get comfortable with it, then you'll be like him. You'll be like, I don't want to drive. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
I just recently got a self-driving car, I have to say, and it's making my life easier.
Game changer. Okay. See, those life hacks. Yeah.
So I can relate on the life easier front. Well, and that was the next thing we were going to talk about, which is Gen Z and Alpha. And so I also have a child. I think we probably all have in the same realm. The first time my daughter, please play Roblox with me, please play Roblox. So I get in there and I'm like, what is this interface from? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you talking about? And I think I've had this realization over the last couple of years with her as we're going into the teen years, which is tough, is that she doesn't know. She's living a very different life experience than I'm living. And that applies to technology, to culture, to, just a global nature in general. And I guess, there are a lot of data points to suggest that there are some of the things that they're doing differently. They're not following the trend. They're bucking the trend. Alcohol's one. They're consuming way less alcohol than the millennial generation, et cetera. So as they sort of accept and define their rules of play, let's say, using the Roblox as a theme, what do we think they're going to want from immersive experiences? Have we seen, what are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you hoping for the future?
Well, there's an experience we had working for the Truth anti-vaping, anti-tobacco brand that makes me hopeful for the future for exactly these spaces. So where they seek their concept of what truth is and what the truth is, I think that's where we're going to be able to drive some things. So in the fall of 2023, we created a creator tournament where we gave away cloaks in Minecraft to creators and kids who had a tournament sponsored by Truth. It was back to the immersion game, lots of impressions, can see the logo there, do all that. But we also ran Twitch that they could, tune in. And we were moderating Discord very heavily. And so they would go into Discord, and that's actually where they would start to question things about who the sponsor was and what was this thing about anti-vaping.
Yeah.
And as we went deeper and deeper and deeper, some of them even showed us their setups, taking photographs around their computers, vape cartridges by the dozens, laying out all over the place. And we started to try to guide on, we had the moderators well-trained, like well-prepared for these situations, guiding on making sure that they were getting good advice. We even discovered some situations where there were, possibly and felt very clearly some mental health challenges and some things. Tried to guide those kids. We got some kids direction and help in the places that they need. But they were there because that's where they trusted the people that they were meeting. And they weren't necessarily with those people physically or anything, but it was real. It was truth for them where they were. And so having that kind of connection point and the right kind of guidance in the place from a brand to do it, I think we have to go into those spaces in order to help people not just progress or make choices about the brands that make up their lives, but to actually try to help the world move forward positively.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a responsibility in guiding Gen Z and Gen A and the next gen, right? Yeah. Maria, did you have a...
Well, I'll just add, I think also there's a responsibility also that they expect from advertisers and brands and how they show up, right? And it goes back to, the new majority and, as multicultural audiences and just citizens, right, are speaking up and they want advertisers to have a voice and to have a stance. I think it was like 36% consumers will boycott a brand if they feel you're not, representing or have representation or DE&I in some capacity, and then it increases with younger audiences, younger, folks. So it's just really important that advertisers continue to do the good work in the right way, like we spoke about earlier, with cultural relevance and resonance. And I think they're just going to hold advertisers more and more accountable.
All right. Tamara, how about you? Any big trends, Gen Z, Gen A, that we...
I think they like community and connection with one another. I think, again, my daughter's in the audience and I just keep looking at her because this is her world. And so it's always...
Yeah, we should probably just have her up here letting us know, right?
Come up and answer these questions. But like her and her friends, like they find community everywhere. And so whether they're doing it like on FaceTime, whether they're doing it through Roblox, whether it's through Snap, it's just different ways for them to enjoy one another. Like you said, when we were growing up, like we were outside all day until the lights came on,
yep.
And so they're doing that, but wherever they can find each other online, they're doing it. And it's amazing to me. Like, again, I grew up in a time where we had pen pals, like somebody moved away and you would write a letter, but like we'll meet people on vacation and she'll get their Snap and she's got friends globally at 11, and so I think that's what they're looking for in terms of experiences, things that can create community for them and connection.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll just add also that you mentioned about the alcohol consumption, I think also that healthier lifestyle that they're craving and wanting, this new trend also with these coffee pop-ups, right? Having DJ these daytime parties where there's no alcohol, it's coffee.
Yeah.
So I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think the influencer has shifted, right? Because my mom told me things, but now my daughter tells me the things. So I think we were having this chat. There weren't skincare brands in the 80s and 90s where we had Clinique. That was it.
That was
and then now there's so much more choice. And my daughter, she just has this completely curated, strong point of view. You should use this. You should use this. And back to the point of easy, I'm like, well, your advice is probably as good as anyone else's, so I'm going to go for it. And so I find myself exploring and trying new things because of her influence and what she's telling me. So I think we could probably all relate to that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just going back to daughters, my daughter is 10, and I hear her on the phone. She has my phone, and I'm like, who's she talking to? ChatGPT, her girlfriend, and they're just chatting away. She's like the in-house resident expert of everything because of ChatGPT, so it's fascinating, yeah.
We created some research and guidance that was, about thinking beyond social media, and there's evidence that we found that the most influential person in the world is a teenage girl in an American household.
Wow.
Because the amount of things that she brings into the house to actually, make those choices.
Yeah.
It's incredible to hear those stories that that are reflective of that. And we do that this was kind of the basis of our strategies for Milk Pep, formerly the Got Milk brand and things. So the strategy there to get milk into gaming was let's support teenage girls, power their gaming there, create milk and Fortnite maps, but support them. And then the reasoning behind it is if we can power a better whole milk experience for them and it's part of the recharge, versus a Red Bull or a Gatorade or a Coca-Cola or all those things that are in those spaces, then, there will be better choices in the household overall. And that's working in our work through the Milk Cup and what we do in that space.
Right. All right, well, we're nearing the end here. We've talked about so many things. So I'm going to do one last question for us all, and then open it up if anybody in the audience has anything. But let's say we took away the tech, the budget, the spectacle. If you had to base the next immersive idea that you were going to build on one human truth, just one, what would that human truth be that you would lean into to create that experience?
Wow. I would go back to trust.
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 Okay.
It's the basis of everything.
Okay. Tamara?
I matter.
You matter.
I matter. You matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Any experience that sees people, really sees you. I think you were talking about that earlier, but I think the experience is where you can see my humor, you can see my fun, you can see my desire for curiosity or playfulness or anything like that. But I matter.
Excellent. Ben?
Love in all its many dimensions. love for each other, love for what you do, love for your family, love and appreciation for the world, loving yourself, the choices you make, and then trying to do things that, create that level of connection respectfully, but just love.
Great. Well, before the robots take over, we have some humanity still left here among us. Any questions from the audience before we wrap up?
You've left you all speechless.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all are amazing. Thank you so much. My name is Amarachi, and I had a question about storytelling and AI. So when it comes to the future of technology and how prevalent AI is going to be in telling stories, how can we make sure that AI doesn't become biased in terms of informing the public and making sure people are seen, but also inclusive when AI is trained by whoever AI is trained by?
Excellent question. Who wants to tackle this one?
I'll say real quick, and then I hope to hear other things, 'cause I'm so curious about it myself. It's like, remember those blue flowers I mentioned on that ofrenda? AI generated. So the thing is we were speeding up the workflow process. It's a handy tool to be. It's better than Google searching the images and doing things like that. But we're working very fast now and trying to do this. It's not only the tool that's driving it. It's the output that's coming of it and the pace at which we're trying to put this stuff out now. Like, spend time to be thoughtful about what's going to come out. Unfortunately, a lot of the data is super biased already because, there is racism in the data. The data there's a lot of problematic stuff out there. Like the way that, all of that stuff is, I think we should expect that there's going to continue to be problems because it's trying to read this aggregate average of what all of human history has thought. So we really need to be thoughtful as humans about what's coming out of it and make the time in the process to really consider that. So.
And that's the thing. I mean, human error, right? It's trained by a human, it's so interesting. My daughter was, again, going back to ChatGPT. She just got the part of young Fiona in the Shrek musical at our theater company in our area, and she was making a flyer to invite everybody to her. Going back to community, right? They want everybody to support. So she was making this flyer, and she was giving it prompts, and she said, "Make a flyer. I want Fiona to be in it. Young Fiona. She's not a troll, or what are they? She's not that yet.
Ogre.
An ogre." And it generated a redhead little girl, tall, petite, slim. And she said, no, make her Latina. Well, it generated a short, little pudgy, very dark-skinned little girl with pigtail. I mean, it just fed into every stereotype. And she goes, "Mom, like, how did it go from this to this?" And I was like, well, a human fed it that's what a Latina looks like, right? And she was so blown away.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect example of how these biases and like even AI and how it's trained to think that that's how you should represent a young Latina girl, right?
I think, AI is a tool and a resource, but it's not the storyteller.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that we prevent that is that, we are still the ones telling stories and having the ability to go in and edit it. Like you were saying, like having the right people on the team to say, no, you're not going to use the blue balls, but we have to make sure that we are not relying on AI to tell the story. Like it is just a tool and a resource.
Bingo, yeah.
Any other questions in the audience? Anything else?
Great question.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks to our panel members with your fantastic experience and examples. And I hope next year at Cannes we're having an evolved conversation on this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Give them another round of applause. Storytelling is near and dear to my heart, so thank you. You are all really, really phenomenal. We've got a little time because the other panel's running a little behind. But I'm curious, what is the one thing you could wish for in 2025 around storytelling that you don't see happening today? I love that. You love it when people go, ooh.
Yeah, I'll give an answer. I think storytelling has always been about passing down and that sort of human connection. When I tell you a story and I get your reaction and you're like, oh, or, really that authentic, organic nature of human storytelling that's always been passed down. And I think in a very digital world, we're missing the other side of the camera that sees what people are thinking and seeing what they experience. And I think that as a storyteller, makes you better because you see that response and it helps you gauge, oh, that somebody thought that was interesting, that body language, oh, somebody thought that was cool, that was smart. And I feel like that two-way dialogue of storytelling is almost getting more and more lost in the scale of digital complexity that we have. So that's my thought.
I think keeping it real. We were just in the lobby of I don't want to maybe name the hotel, of a popular hotel chain. And on the elevator, it said, your journey begins here. And it was like an ad for advertisers. And it was like, tell your brand story here. And I took a picture of it because I feel like you're not keeping it real. Like if I'm a person on an elevator, how much of a journey am I gonna have in this 30-second ride that this big brand story is going to connect to me, right? Like, I just thought it was such a joke. And so sometimes I feel like storytelling is just overused, It's just, it's the jargon and it's the word of today. But I think you just have to keep it real, and you've got to keep the story real in real experiences, because your brand story is not happening on an elevator in a hotel,
Context is critical. Sometimes we see those things and you're like, nope, wrong place, wrong time, I'm out.
We always talk about, like, in experiential and our agency, like it's at the right place at the right time, that there's a time and place for the brand to show up, and making sure that we're connecting and resonating.
Yeah. Maria?
I would say the accurate representation of Latinidad. For me as a Latina woman, that's obviously so important, but I'm also a Mexican American whose family's been here since the late 1800s. So my story is very different than another Latina story, right? And I never hear my story being told. So yeah, I wish that there was more representation and accurate portrayals of our stories.
Yeah. Ben?
I think with these technologies that we have now and where we are with the technologies right now, there's a lot of the discussion about the creation of the story is like efficiency's obsession. It's how can we make it more? We're using AI to make it for us? You're using AI? Are you using AI? You had that sticker pack upstairs of like, are you using AI? How are we using AI? AI is the answer. It's like, and I think that's driven by the efficiency obsession. And I'm hoping that we can make room for the way that we can bring the magic into those things so that we can create that love that's much needed.
Oh, I love that. And I'll tell you, dovetailing on that, yesterday we were fortunate enough to have Deepak Chopra here for lunch. And we did a meditation to open it, and then we closed it. And one of the things that he said that was so memorable was like, I'm watching you rush around, go to these meetings, all these activations that can, but live your life, find joy. Joy should really come from a lot of that storytelling, that human face-to-face interaction, those conversations. That's where change really happens. So find joy. But thank you. This was a fantastic panel.
Thank you.
Love it.